It's not a matter of internal volume, it's a matter of wind displacement percentage of the wing ratio to its mass. Sorry, Monty Python. I'm the guy on the thing. It's like
since you can't see me, I just gave him a great big blank stare and had no idea what he was talking about, which is why he needed to explain that.
It's not a matter of migration patterns. It's a matter of weight ratios. A 4 pound. It's nerdy stuff. Okay, you know I'm gonna go there, right? And so this scene is completely retarded. This dragon would be nowhere near fast enough or big enough to catch up and breach the show. What are you doing? That's what I'd do if the show was bad. Before we begin, you might have heard of the graphic novel adaptation of my book, Shadow of the Conqueror, Enemies of Self. Yes, it is still available, so you can secure your copy if you haven't already. I made sure we had some of the very best comic book art that you can get. This is absolutely a top-tier graphic novel, and it has been going amazing. We actually passed $300,000, which is incredible. I'm so thankful to everyone who's backed us, and I'm wondering how far we can push it now, because the more successful this campaign is, the more I intend to reinvest and do even more. Not only the second volume of Shadow of the Conqueror, awesome space opera, as well as superhero comic books, just doing the classic great stuff that we have been, I've been starving for, because we absolutely can have awesome stories once again, and we can make them ourselves even better than what the mainstream is doing. So if you haven't backed it already, I really encourage you to check it out because I think you will love it. There are collector edition covers as well as leather bound, available not just for the graphic novel, but the second edition version of the main trade published novel that it's based on. Yes, so if you haven't tried my book yet, great time to give it a go as well. Welcome back to the Watch and House of the Dragon, episode 10, the final episode. Oh, there's, of course, as always, lots to talk about. I am joined by my lovely wife, the lady. How are you?
I'm doing wonderfully, thank you. But now, I watched this episode and the previous episode together because I didn't make it for last week. And so it's kind of all into like one big movie for me at the moment because there wasn't a time gap in these ones. Where a lot of the other episodes, there could sometimes be years in between. Mm-hmm. And these ones just carried one from the other. So it was kind of like watching a nice movie.
Yeah, and episode 9 was probably the most, I guess, divisive episode. Like, it was good, I enjoyed it, but it had probably the worst, like, moment in it, where in the whole show, which was just baffling, and it's when Rhaenys decides to slaughter a few thousand people unnecessarily so.
It wouldn't be who I would have aimed to be slaughtering at that stage.
Yes. Baffling. And the big concern was, oh no, are they going down later Game of Thrones season style writing where they go for spectacle over substance? Because that's what that moment was. Happy to say that they didn't. Episode 10 was a return to form, ends off the season with a bang where things are about to, go crazy. And it was an extremely effective episode for what it was trying to do. The characters respond in all cases, very logical, consistent ways. I still have one question about one of the things that happened towards the end, but it's a minor nitpick because I understand, I don't know, like, it doesn't ruin the show by any means. In actual fact, what happens and how it ends is really powerful, and it sets up the rest of the story where you kind of expect it's going to go. And so overall, yeah, I really enjoyed this episode. What were your thoughts, my dear?
Like I said, because they kind of blended together, I have to kind of separate it in my mind which is which. But can I just add that I did have a thought with the dragon scene.
Which dragon scene? There's lots of dragon scenes.
No. In the previous episode with
Rhaenys? Yes.
That it could have been construed slightly as political because the whole idea of having so many people here to witness the coronation was to give witnesses, to give credence to his authority. Mm-hmm. And by having fewer of those witnesses available made it somewhat less official, and people would be talking about the dragon a lot, and so it kind of distracted. So it could have been slightly political, but mainly I think she was really ticked off.
I think she just lost the plot. I mean, because there was she killed like at least a 1,000, if not more. It seemed like, but there was a lot more people who survived on the sides that got free, and I mean, would they have been able to recognize who was on that dragon? Because they might have thought, well, is it one of the people that have the dragons there? But all the Greens need to do is like, oh no, it was Rhaenys, and if Rhaenys throws support behind the Blacks, which is Daemon and Rhaenyra, suddenly it looked like declaration of war right then, when she was willing to slaughter thousands of innocent people at the attempt to try and kill the Greens, which she doesn't do, and then it makes you like, why did you kill so many people? And so if they're smart, the Greens would be able to use that to really get support behind them from the local people in King's Landing against the Blacks. So look what they're willing to do to.
But so far they've ignored it.
There's only brief mention of this in episode 10, and I found the explanation to be massively unsatisfying and contradictory. It's one of the few criticisms I have of the episode, how they decide to handle the aftermath of that. And one other... Look, there's maybe a nitpick here or there as well that we'll get as we go through that I might remember. But I was having a great discussion of this with Mauler and Nerdrotic. Sorry, Nerdrotic... with Gary on Nerdrotic's channel, with Molar, Ryan, Jane Theory, and Fringy. There was a whole group, and it was interesting to getting their perspectives on how they felt it could be interpreted. And so that'll probably come up in the episode by episode breakdown, just to hear some of the other perspectives on certain things that I was like, had an eyebrow raised. But other than those, things, like I said, really, really good episode. And so this episode begins, basically, with Rhaenys arriving at Dragonstone onwards. And so what were your impressions from those events onwards?
Okay, so now I know where we're starting.
Yes.
I still like how well they keep to the characters' personalities, and their reactions are true to them.
Yes.
I really actually liked Princess... Rhaenys?
Rhaenys is the one who went all wholesale slaughter. You're talking about the princess...
Princess Rhaenys with her husband, and how she has this discussion with
him
about where they stand, because she's leaving it to him to decide as head of the house.
Yep.
But she will put in her opinion of where things are and what has happened so far, and gives him lots of information, but also kind of manipulates him a little as well. Yes,
I have a big issue with that, right? Because... minor spoiler, we'll get to full spoilers, I don't think this ruins everything. Her logic is that Rhaenyra is the only one showing restraint, right? This is coming from Rhaenys, saying it's good to have restraint in a field of potential war, and I'm like, what restraint did you show when you killed thousands of people and tried to get free?
Surely there was another way of getting her dragon out there. They have exits.
It came off as just a tad rich coming from her. It's like, oh, I admire her for showing restraint, when she just, no restraint at all, wiped out thousands of innocent people, when she could have just used the door, because there's another entrance into that thing,
well, dragons have to get out without breaking through stone.
Exactly. Just use the front door, woman. I mean... Gosh.
Well, maybe she just hadn't decided whether she was going to wipe out the entire, royal family that was present.
There's a lot of progressive people behind this show, and let me just say, they're not doing a very good job in, dispelling the stereotype that women are bad drivers. You have Daenerys, who goes crazy in Game of Thrones, wiping out all these things on dragons, and then the other person who's wiped out wholesale, regular people on a dragonback is another woman. What are they trying to say?
I do like that Princess Rhaenyra brings that up. She's like, war with dragons means wiping out a lot of people. Everything is on fire.
Yeah, but that's implying, collateral damage that you couldn't avoid. You could have avoided this, Rhaenys. Crazy woman. So there's there's a moment, and there's another moment where I was like, Rhaenys, what are you... it's so out of character for her, and ruins these lines because of, it shouldn't have happened.
That scene had been skipped and she'd just flown away. All of these comments made by her would
be good.
Perfectly.
It would have built her character.
They just wanted the spectacle in this one scene, I feel, to make this dragon exit impactful.
I reckon they could have made it impactful still. Have her fight guards to get free in the main entrance and stuff instead of murdering thousands of innocent people
that didn't have a choice being there in the first place. They were rounded up by the guards.
What's frustrating about this, right? There's a commentary by either one of the showrunners or director or something like that, where they said the reason why Rhaenys chose to not wipe out the Greens was that she didn't want to kill another mother. It's like, what about all the mothers she already killed bursting through? It's like they're thinking that innocent civilians don't exist.
Mind you, out of the individuals, and especially the mothers, that's the mother that I like the most, is the Queen. As an individual, I can't stand her sons.
Oh, you're talking about Rhaenyra now.
Queens.
Alicent, yes.
I love Alicent as an individual. Her children are horrible. But if you're going by individuals, I would go with the Greens. But if you're looking at the inheritance, then there's no chance that you would want her sons ruling anything.
Yes.
And so I can kind of say that she's really cross that this rotten scoundrel is becoming the king. And then she kind of looks at her and she's like, actually, you're not really that bad. I really don't want to kill you. So I can kind of get that understanding of, I really hate these kids. They shouldn't rule. But gee, that mother's, she's doing the best she can.
And she had second thoughts then, you're saying, yeah. To me, it's like sunken cost. You killed a lot of people to get to this point. You could end a war right now. And by killing all these innocent people, by the way, that is an act of, war. You're killing people, okay? It's not like, someone's been bombing all our citizens and they're destroying their towns and everything, but they're not declaring war until they attack the nobility. That's not how war works, Rhaenys.
Okay, but she does show up and she comes within a couple of days of the death of the king to tell...
Well, we won't get to spoilers yet. I know we've kind of got, light spoilers.
That's where we start.
Yeah.
She approaches the king.
I do want to give some more broad overviews, but that's where the show begins. Because a couple of things that I think worked really well. Rhaenyra came off even better in this episode, I think, as a mother who's concerned for her children. And I they do something interesting with her character that we'll mention when we're going through the spoilers, and it's something in relation to her father that I liked, okay? That built her even a bit more as a character. I felt it was justified with how they built it up, because in the previous episodes, I was thinking Rhaenyra's going to be an awful ruler, but they kind of actually switched that, where in the previous episode, they finally showed her reflecting a little bit of responsibility in terms of the role and what's happening, her as heir and stuff. And they went with that even more so to actually make her even more likable and sympathetic and potentially a decent ruler, to the point where I like Rhaenyra a bit more from this episode. Daemon is... Daemon?
Yes, Daemon's consistent and should be controlled.
But he's such a dynamic, intriguing character on screen, so of course that works really well. This is an episode that focuses on the Blacks. The Greens basically don't show up except Otto at one point, but that's not a spoiler.
They had a lot in the previous episode.
Yeah.
So they kind of had their part through this, and now you see a lot of the Blacks.
It was really, really engaging, and it was interesting. I was actually expecting, right, a bit more spectacle in this episode than other ones. I thought there would be bigger things happen. Something big really happened, don't get me wrong, but I thought it would go even further. And as a result, this is just because of my own expectations, I was a little deflated from watching it. But that was, again, because I was expecting, I guess, something bigger. But what did happen was actually very impactful still, and it sets up, and it's a very good episode. I don't think it's the best episode. Episode 8 is still by far my favourite, and it would be really hard to top that. So I am sitting on a good 7 or 8 out of 10 for this episode. Those nitpicks I have, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm kind of sitting on the 7. I was interested to see how it would progress and how they would continue it on to the next season, because they obviously want people to come back and want to know what happens next.
This will make people come back,
and that's kind of how I ended. I'm like, wow, that's a real way of making sure they come back for the next season. Like, some series, they don't leave it on that much of a cliffhanger of like, oh. But this really does, and they did that well.
That was a good choice.
Yes.
So those are our kind of broad views, non-spoilers, mostly non-spoilers, and our rating. We'll dive into spoilers now, breaking down all the main things, mostly chronologically, but if we jump around, that's fine. This is your warning. We're diving into it right away. It opens with, I get their names mixed up. It's Jace or Luke, and I forget which one is the younger one.
Jace, I believe, is the older one.
So this is Luke, we think. But there's, you know why they start with the young one here, because of what happens in the episode. Perfectly justified, because, I mean, they've been consistent with his character. I already liked the Strong Boys, right? And I like him even more now. He's basically saying, like, I'm going to be an awful leader of Driftmark. Why are you... Like, I don't even know how... When I sail, I get sick. How am I supposed to lead a fleet? And it just shows that the sons are actually looking at their future responsibilities fairly and honestly, and they're not after power. And then if they get power and responsibility, they're really concerned because they feel responsible that they need to do a good job. That's all really good stuff. Makes me like the characters.
And that's a great way to have raised them, that they have responsibility to the people. It's not just about them getting all the goodies in life and getting things their way, but they've actually got to run things and make things go smoothly. And
Rhaenyra comes in and she says, well, look, sometimes you get the responsibility that you didn't want. It's your duty, and she says, it happened to me, I wasn't ready, and I'm going to help you. And he says, I'm not like you, I'm not perfect. And she's like, well, I'm not perfect either. Glad she acknowledges that. No, she's not. But it made her look like a good, caring mother that actually cares for her children. And it's interesting because, like I said, I wasn't the biggest fan of Rhaenyra. I thought she shouldn't have been a ruler. I felt she was a well-written character, but not a fan in terms of her character personality traits. But now she's improving, and I think she's gone through a character arc where she's showing more responsibility. It's good. I like it. Next scene is Rhaenys arrives to tell them the news. Interesting scene. I mean, of course, Rhaenyra is told that her father's dead, and that's Daemon's brother, and so how Daemon processes his grief is personal. It's different. But of course, Rhaenyra, that triggers childbirth from the stress of it all, because they're told that the Greens, they've usurped the throne, they've crowned Aegon in front of everyone, given the High Septim or someone in the, a religious order to ratify it, making it look very official. All the people saw it, and of course that's hugely distressing. And Daemon's reaction is like, how did you get free then if they locked you away? And she's like, she doesn't really answer it, but then it's revealed she got to a dragon, and then is like, you could have burned them all for it, and why didn't you? And her answer, Rhaenys' answer, is that she says, that war was not mine to make or begin, or something like along those lines. It wasn't my job to start the war. And I'm like, killing thousands of citizens is an act of war, you crazy woman. Like, that is...
Royalty apparently just takes that as a matter of their rights.
It's just like, what are you saying, woman? And then, Daemon's like, you could have, burnt them all. And the thing is, right, if she really did care about, a war not starting, and she's acting like she doesn't want to get involved, but then the line that, where she says Rhaenyra shows restraint reflects that she has some concern for the regular people, that a war would be bad and everyone burns because of dragons and all that stuff. She literally had the power to end it right then, okay? And saved thousands of lives, all right? And I get that she's supposed to be undecided at this point, and it's her husband that helps her determine a side and seeing who's the better ruler and other things like that. And that's the thing, though. If she was so undecided, why would you wipe out thousands of people who are loyal to one side? Right? I mean, that is declaring your side. Just because you didn't kill the nobility of that side, you wiped out the citizenry, all the people.
There's no war if there's no other person
Yes.
who don't try to claim the throne.
Anyone observing her wiping out thousands of people that are loyal to the Greens would think, oh, you obviously are loyal to the Blacks. And then
Because she already knew that people were being locked up or imprisoned and forced to bow to this king. So she already knew that. And
people being executed if they didn't. So this is treasonous, murderous behavior.
She'd seen the noble hanging.
Yep.
as she was leaving, and so she knew the lengths that they would go to any opposing them, and she also knew what the previous king had wanted, and so she could have quite easily justified it and not have been in any trouble at all.
Like, they could have justified this and made her character so much more consistent if she went or attempted the kill. She breaks free, and because that's when suddenly you might be able to have an argument that she was willing to sacrifice these few thousands people to save millions. If she can avoid the war, it's like, then okay, cost benefit, like
instead she comes across very indecisive and not quite knowing
exactly
what she wants.
Exactly, and it would have worked so well if she honestly felt that was a necessary trade to try and end the war. She burst out, and without hesitation she just launches fireballs, but everyone on the on the pew, like on the pulpit, whatever, it's not a pulpit, it's like, I don't know, the stand where the crowning has happened, because it took a few seconds for the dust to settle and for her to see where everything was, right? And that's enough time for, the Greens. As soon as the eruption happens, they run for safety. And when the dust settles and she sees them just getting out the door, she's like, Dracarys, Dracarys! And she just fireballs and misses them by a hair, and they just get to safety through the doors. And
she can't follow them through.
She
there,
can't
so
follow.
Then she off. That would make sense.
And then like there's reactions happening where maybe like someone says, "Get to dragons, we're under attack," and she realizes, oh, more dragons are going to be after me. I need to save myself now. I tried, I failed, and then she gets out. You could have sold it so much better if it had her that her action was, I was trying to stop a war,
And Damon would have liked her for it.
He would have. He would have. And so that's why I'm so frustrated about that scene and the delivery and the lines here, is because they could have had their cake and eaten it too. They could have had the spectacle moment, but justified it perfectly in the narrative by making her committed to what she was doing, actively attempting to kill them and failing, and then needing to get to safety because the dragons could be after her and everything. And then she tells them what's going on and says, I pledge to you, my children are betrothed to your children, her grandchildren are betrothed to Rhaenyra's children and everything. And so the future of Driftmark is in with this house already. All of that, okay? And she's
pretty much already thrown in with them anyway. Like,
exactly.
She's committed to going with them. Like, it wouldn't have been that much of a stretch.
Oh, so please understand why I'm so frustrated by this character now. And the line that she gives is like, it was not my war to begin. It's like, the war's already started, all right? As soon as the Greens put that crown on Aegon, it's war, okay? And, gosh, it's so frustrating. Rhaenyra goes into labour, and it felt, I'd say Daemon, he's just, I'm preparing for war. It's a very Daemon type of thing. He is obviously not good at showing too much, like, what he perceives as weakness and affection.
Yes, and he would perceive this as weakness, being worried about his wife. So he focuses on what he feels he can manage and what he can handle.
Rhaenyra here, she doesn't want any help with the midwives. And I guess there are times like when you're in such pain, it's like, don't touch me kind of thing. It could be that she is in extreme distress because her father just died. And so you can justify what goes on here, because there is a question like, why aren't you getting help? I can understand why she doesn't want it.
And really, she probably feels like there's nothing you can help with at this stage. Like, I'm doing the work, I need to get into position, and I am in pain, leave me alone, let me deal with this. So I can kind of get it. Like, they say, let us help, but really they're mostly there to catch.
Well, there are complications though. They show the child, and it's a stillborn, and I saw an angle where it looked like the umbilical cord was around its neck. The thing is though, it also had a malformed head, and so I don't know exactly what they're trying to say there, that it would have been a stillborn no matter what because it's malformed. Sometimes Targaryens actually have like babies that are born with dragon features, like scales, deformed wings and things. They have like the blood of the dragon in them.
Yeah, because it didn't look just like it was preemie. It looked like it was like actually growing.
Yeah, it wasn't properly premature. This is like maybe a month before, and they're mostly, they're still a bit smaller, but not to a significant level. You can see,
but they have
really preemie babies.
But some of its skull was even...
Its skull looked very deformed.
Yeah.
And so I was a little confused because you could have just had normal stillborn without showing the umbilical cord around the neck, because with the umbilical cord, it's kind of implying there were complications that could have been avoided if she got the help of the midwives. You wouldn't blame her for it in her emotional state. It's just a tragic thing that happens. But then the show is also kind of implying that it would have been a stillborn no matter what, because it's deformed, looking like it. It's very emotional. You feel it, especially when that child comes out and she cradles it. As a father, seeing, being there for all of our children's births, that would be heartbreaking. Absolutely heartbreaking. And so it's interesting. I know some people, like I was talking, they found it. It's normal to be uncomfortable by seeing, a dead baby there like that. I don't know. Seeing my children, upon their birth, I'm used to. I know that there'll be blood when that happens, and it's messy and things. And so the messy that didn't throw me the ickiness of it, because I guess I'm already familiar with that side of pregnancy. I was just, and as a result, the emotional impact hit me, without too much getting in the way of the discomfort of ickiness.
Which is kind of funny, because I see less of the ick than you. You see a lot of stuff, and they don't hand me the baby until the baby's clean. Yes. And so I mostly see a clean baby. You kind of see all the muck.
I see everything. Because there's even they see the... So when the baby's just about to come out, that's crowning, isn't it?
Yes.
But then they even show the head out.
Yes, and so usually the head will come out in one contraction.
Yeah.
And then another contraction brings the rest of the baby out.
And they even go so far to show part of the head peeking out. And I think that would be like, for a lot of people, I feel it would be like that. I've seen that before. It's actually, the weird thing, right? It's... For me, being there with my children, seeing the head pop out is actually an exhilarating thing. It's the first sight of your child coming into the world. And then when the child fully comes out, it's euphoric to see this person now that's going to be a part of your lives. And so, like I said, as a result, I wasn't thrown by those scenes, and the emotion had the effect. And it was a very impactful scene.
And really, it's not the first show to, have childbirth in it. Yeah. So it shouldn't be too confronting, because it's
a part of life, people.
It's in movies, it's in TV shows, but the impactful thing was that this baby didn't survive for whatever reason, and so she was not only mourning the loss of her father, who she's not even sure if he was murdered or if he passed away naturally. She's also mourning the life that she lost in her baby that was caused by this news. And so she is greatly impacted in this part.
Oh, yeah. I'm glad you brought up the accusation of murder, because it was Damon that says they murdered my brother. And I can see why he says it, okay? One is an interpretation or view that says, Damon, he was on his deathbed. It shouldn't be a surprise that he died, okay? Like any day would have been the assumption after seeing what state he was in. The thing is, though, the fact that he died and they did the usurpation, the crowning and everything, it seemed to be timed very well when they left, the Red Keep, and suddenly when they're not there, now he dies when there was no messenger to be able to reach them, and they crown and everything like that.
And then there's, of course, the claims of the Queen saying, his last words to anybody were to me, saying that he wants Aegon to rule.
Yep.
And so, which made more suspicion of they've just set this all up so that they can take control.
It makes it look very convenient, and so with the character Damon it's perfectly in line for him to just jump to the conspiracy that they clearly killed my brother to usurp the throne. And so, all right, that fits. Damon is planning and is ready to send off messengers, but Jace is the older one.
I think Jace is the older one. That's what my brain keeps telling me, and so I'm just hoping I'm correct.
So it is Jace, and he asserts his authority a bit. He tries to, he says, the mother has ordered no one to take any action until she's ready to oversee what's going on. Damon tries to ignore it. He asserts himself, and so, as Jace is showing some of his potential there. Interesting that Damon arrived then, and he didn't need to be told. He just saw Rhaenyra cradling the baby, but there's
she's not pacing anymore. She's not screaming. She's just rocking, and he's like,
there's no baby sound, and so
he knows
exactly what happened. So I like this scene. What it shows, Rhaenyra is wrapping up the baby, okay? She's mourning. Daemon is gone out to be alone, and his head is bowed, and look at him. He's heartbroken, and it just reminds me of the line he had, I think it was like the first episode or second, where he says to the king, we all mourn in our own way. And this is the way he mourns, right? He's clearly devastated by it. It is not a perfect man, and so of course, you think you should be there for your wife's, pain. He has his own pain, and so he deals with it the way that he needs to deal with it. So yeah, like look, powerful scenes, and then there is the scene here where they are cremating, burning, the baby. There's a kind
pyre
of
a pyre. Is it a pyre if it's not on water?
I don't know.
I think it is a pyre.
I think maybe. And look, it reflects the death of Viserys' child in episode 1. Okay. This guy arrives. He's one of the King's Guard. He's the one that helped Rhaenys escape.
One of the two brothers.
And this is a great scene. I loved what happens here. He basically swears fealty, but then it reveals that he has Viserys' crown, the crown of her father, and he offers it to her. And this was obviously a very nice touch. And Daemon takes the crown, and there's a shot of him looking down upon it. So Daemon's looking down at the crown, and this is what this show does really well, okay? Where it's able to imply so many complex concepts and emotions by just showing a character that has a very solidly established, personality, the history and stuff, because he's looking at the crown of his brother there, right? A crown that might have been his. He was the heir at one point, and it is also a reminder that his brother is dead, and the instability that's going on, and so you can see a lot of complex things would be going through his mind. And then what he does, he places that crown on the head of Rhaenyra. Which is interesting because as one who had a claim to the throne, he was the heir, he has now been supporting other people's claims. He put that same crown on the head of his brother, acknowledging his brother's, status and royalty, and that he will bow to his brother. Now is doing the same to his wife.
Now, I found this scene quite interesting here, where he gets down on his knees to bow to her, and so do everybody around. When Alicent's son is crowned, he gets a nod.
Yeah, interesting.
The other people up on the raised area with him, that none of them get down on their knees.
That is an interesting
They just nod
contrast.
to him.
Yeah.
And so this is a significant sign of respect by comparison.
Yeah.
That they are fully behind her.
That they actually believe that she is a true, ruler that they will respect and honour, whereas Aegon, no one respects him.
He barely got a nod from his grandfather.
Yeah, and I mean, look, Aemond, he barely nodded. He was just like, the slightest tilting almost. Though of course the thing is though, it's more acknowledgement than Aegon has ever gotten in his life, and then the cheers from the crowd, he just gets drunk on that and is going to be an awful king. But yeah, a great observation. You're absolutely right. And of course she would be a much better monarch than Aegon. And there's her sons kneeling, and everyone kneels except Rhaenys, and they're doing that to show Rhaenys not throwing her support behind anyone.
She hasn't decided yet without the talking with her husband.
Even though she killed thousands of innocent people, that will be loyal to. You've already declared your side, woman. And the fact that the show wants us to think that is an insignificant thing you could ignore. Just like someone else is writing that. That's very much late Game of Thrones season perspective there. Don't do spectacle over substance. Because that's the thing, right? The most impactful and powerful moment in this series, right, was an old man walking across a room to sit in a chair. You don't need spectacle for incredible emotional significance and investment. All right, they need to learn from their mistakes, don't repeat them, and learn from what worked in this season and realize, don't just jump the shark to get, girl power moment, dragon rider person. And so, great scene. Rhaenyra is awful. Sorry, not Rhaenyra. Rhaenys is awful. So this is the preparing of the table. And it was a cool effect. So yeah, they put the candles under the table, and then it lights up. I mean, I'm a nitpicker, you know. Like, you would need more candles closer to the base. It's sitting on the floor, and it wouldn't light it up that brightly. But rule of cool, I would go with it this way.
Definitely the rule of cool. And I think it came up beautifully.
Yeah,
I loved it.
It looks really good.
And it was kind of funny that it lit from the centre out when they put it in from the side, so it didn't start from one end to the other. But it just looks really good.
It looks great. It's a great effect. And to sell it all the way, all you need is like multiple trays of like there's like a row. They put in one tray and another tray and another tray close to the underside, and that enables the lighting up. But I get it. I'm a nitpicker. Just be patient with me with small little things like that, because I get it. It looks very cool. It's a rule of cool. I like seeing things happen that would get that, and they could have done it. They could just add more candles. But anyway, yes, I get it. It's cool. Just leave me alone, all right? Let me do it. It's what I do. Rhaenyra arrives. We don't really know how much time has passed. She's walking around. Oh, look, I've seen people walk around after childbirth. Case in point, one time it was like not even 10 minutes after the delivery, because one of our children had to be taken to the nursery, and you wanted to see...
I wanted to see my baby, and the nurses or midwives turned around and said, "What are you doing up?"
Yeah, you just walked there.
I want to see my baby. Because
you had painkillers, granted.
This is true. They finally kicked in after the birth.
After the birth.
I was given painkillers during, and they didn't kick in until after. So that certainly helped.
But it can happen. I've seen it. Okay. And then after give it a day or two, his mild walking around is still happening, but rest is a very important thing.
Rest is advisable.
And so I'm just not sure if they're reflecting her as debilitated as she probably would be after giving birth. Granted, if you could get away with small movement, and she was resting, she gets up, has the meeting, puts on a strong face, and afterwards,
collapses.
Off screen, just like, all right, they didn't show that, but and I'm against needing to fill in headcanon, but the thing is, though, this is pretty obvious headcanon, and there's nothing contradicting it.
And it wouldn't have been needed for a scene. So, you can kind of get away with saying, okay, she's toughing it out, she knows she has a duty, she's done, she knows what she's doing, she's had babies before, she knows what she can handle, and she's very determined to do her duty.
Yeah, it's funny, if they actually showed her struggling, though, that would have been a more powerful girl power moment, right?
Remember, she carried her baby through the castle to Alicent when...
that's true, and they showed her struggling then.
And she certainly struggled then, so she's, been able to get cleaned up and get
She's used to just walking around, she's had practice after childbirth, it's just what I gotta do, I'm used to it. So, look, it's a good scene. They list the allies, everything. What I like about it, right? It's all logical, okay? When they list the allies and where they're positioning on the map and who might go to who and everything like that, it all perfectly fits in, right? And it's a strength of this show. It does this type of stuff really well. And in contrast, there's a lot of shows that just... when information needs to be filled in to justify what's going to happen in the plot... poorly written shows, like Rings of Power, just fill it in with gobbledygook nonsense. It's like, oh no, the Mithril is stubborn and won't bond in other things, but what if we stop trying so hard? That'll make it work. It's like, what do you mean? It's nonsense. The logical through line is nonsense, what they're trying to justify. Here, I love it because they are saying, this is our situation. And it makes sense in the positioning, and it's just a sign of good writing. And then, of course, someone comes out and says, well, let's beat around the bush. Because Damon does say, in terms of leading a conquering army, we are very ill-equipped. But then someone says, well, let's stop beating around the bush, it's the dragons, okay? And our side has more dragons. They list who has the dragons, ones that have riders.
Don't have riders as well.
And that kind of comes up a bit later because we see Damon trying to tame a riderless dragon. And it's interesting, they say they need a toehold at a significant location. I believe it's at Harrenhal, where they're all going to get a lot of their forces. That's cool because, small little details like this oftentimes are put in intentionally. Okay, so there's probably going to be a payoff for that. Look, yes, wait and see. Yeah, Daemon saying, surround King's Landing with the dragons, and we're going to have every green head mounted on spikes. But Rhaenyra is reluctant to commit to all-out warfare yet. And I kind of like that. But before that happens, they, have an envoy, an arrival, where the Greens are sending their terms, essentially.
Or their demands.
Yeah, their demands as well. And it's Otto. So, big risk, Otto coming. Like, one could say an unnecessary risk. It was completely unneeded, but is it posturing? The thing is, though, Otto knows Daemon hates him, and so it is really important to the Greens. I actually expected, with Otto arriving, I thought that Daemon would just wipe them all out, and this was going to be Otto's end. And
yeah, I was kind of wondering if they would kind of uphold the whole envoy protection of, if you're bringing basically a white flag of communication, that perhaps you would be protected, which isn't always the case, I know.
Yeah.
But I was wondering which way they would kind of go with this one.
So in the world of Game of Thrones, the safety under someone else's roof, is a massive cultural thing, huge. And if you were to break bread with them or share salt and bread or something like that, that's a sign that you will be safe. And that's why the Red Wedding was such a massive thing, because it was under the safety terms that they broke. And so there is that assumption that an envoy, would be safe. But the thing is, envoy is different to someone who you invite into your house.
Yes.
and break bread with, because we've seen how Daemon has treated messengers before. You nearly beat one to death, okay? And so that protection isn't in place here. Otto has no confidence of protection. And on top of that, the Greens have shown very clearly that they're not going to be against kinslaying, and I know kinslaying is such a taboo in this world. The Greens have already, Otto's been saying, we need to kill Rhaenyra and her children to secure their claim.
And if they don't agree, then they can't be allowed to survive, which is basically saying they've got to die.
And so the logic of the show, what the show has established, is that there is no reason why Daemon wouldn't wipe them out. And in fact, Daemon says, let's kill them all, and it's Rhaenyra that tells them stop. And the thing is, that means it's a very high likelihood that Otto could have died here. If Rhaenyra didn't show the restraint, if she wasn't part of the meeting or anything like that, Otto would have died. And so this is suicide. I think it worked when Otto went to, because this is reflecting one of the earlier scenes where Otto comes to negotiate with Daemon, and Daemon is holding Dragonstone. That showed balls because he wanted to antagonize Daemon to cause a greater divide between Daemon and the king. Okay, and by separating him and the king, Otto then ingratiates himself to the king and increases his own authority. And so that risk I felt was justified, because Otto going, that's antagonizing Daemon even more, even when he's delivering peaceful terms to the king, and any challenge to Otto in that situation challenges the king, increasing the divide. That doesn't work here.
Yeah, so the only thing that I could think of was from a discussion a little bit later where they talk about who brings the message reflects the respect you're giving them. And so him being the hand of the king, I guess, is showing some respect, because by some future messengers on where their standing is, that's supposed to, boost the pride of the recipient.
Yeah, but then there's risk.
There is risk, while trying to be trying to show the people that you're communicating with that they have some sort of place.
Yeah, I think it's just don't say you would have to from the situation of what they did, usurping who Daemon is and everything like that. I think Alicent, when Otto says I'll deliver the message, she would go are you crazy? Are you
Maybe
suicidal?
She sent him. They didn't have a great conversation in the last episode.
And then I don't even think Otto would say I will go, because he's a calculating guy. He's well, that's clearly suicide. How about I not do that? He's a smart person. And look, they did it for the scene. And for most people, they won't care, okay? I'm a nitpicker. This is what I do. I like trying to see if every action in the show is justified. And for the most part, House of the Dragon does it phenomenally, okay? It's just these little moments here and there where I'm just a bit No. Okay, so they give Rhaenyra the page from the book that she ripped out or something with Alicent, reflecting that they once had a friendship, and that makes her kind of second guess the war, and she says, I'll consider it. And Daemon's like, what? And I did do like Daemon's reaction there, because one of the offer was Daemon's children with Rhaenyra. So Daemon has 2 daughters. That's not with Rhaenyra. That was with one of the Driftmark, girls who died. But then he has 2 children with Rhaenyra, and they offered one would be a squire and one would be a cupbearer. And he's like, I'd rather have my children fed to dragons or die or something before, carrying drinks to whatever. Anyway, so yeah, it ends with Rhaenyra considering it. Daemon is also already starting to get a bit peeved at
He's not in a good state of mind right now. So he disagrees with her in public.
Yeah, so here, she says, as queen, as my true duty to the realm, Lord Bartimos, is ensuring peace and unity. And I was like, good on her.
Learning.
Yeah, and this is very much the type of thing that her father will do, and Daemon reacts to that very strongly. She says, or is it that I just sit on the Iron Throne at all costs? Is it worth sitting on a throne of desolation and death? And then Daemon says, "That's your father talking." And then she's like, "My father's dead, but I'm his true chosen heir," and he's challenging her. And so this is all really in character. Okay. Then Daemon's challenging her in public. Clear the room. She goes to talk to him about what's going on, and should I declare war because I'm angry? And he's like, do it. And he snaps and chokes her, grabs her by the throat.
So she mentions the prophecy.
Yes, and that Daemon was never told, and so the prophecy, right? They're clearly doing it to make a connection to the main Game of Thrones plotline. I find it a smaller point, but I guess the way they're integrating it, it's important to her and her father. It was very important to Viserys and stuff. I'm more interested in Daemon's response here and the commentary around it, because I would just be interested if people object to this scene. Like, how dare Daemon abuse his wife in this scene? And the reason why I find that interesting is, if people have an issue with that, did they have an issue with the messenger Daemon almost beat to death because he was in a bad mood? I don't think anyone complained about that. And for me, if they are complaining about this, it's horrible. Like, what Daemon does here is really bad, right? But it does reflect a bit of the double standard that they would complain about what's happening to Rhaenyra and not what happened to the poor guy that got beaten to death. Because for Daemon, he is so pissed off, he's actually showing restraint. Okay, believe it or not, he has gone much further towards people that he is really tested with, right? We've seen it. He's beaten them to death.
Yes, this is within his character.
Mm-hmm.
However, she could almost have been pushed to have, decided almost anything up to this point.
Yeah,
had his hands cut off.
Yeah, exactly. They do love each other in their own kind of weird way. And Daemon is showing his flaws in a big way. Thing is, though, she knows that, I would be interested to see if this stuff does affect their relationship. I don't think it does. I think she still does love him, and she knows who he is, and she probably also knows that this was restrained for him, like anyone lesser that he probably would beat to death as a result. And she also knows that she needs him, especially with the war. He's like an insane warrior, such a skilled commander and stuff like that. But it's just interesting that I wonder, the people who could get offended at this, and I'm not excusing it, this is horrible what he's doing, okay? I wonder if they are aware enough of the characters to realize that this is Daemon showing restraint, believe it or not, as horrible as it is. He's gone far worse.
He does not hold back, typically.
Yes.
He will cut people's heads.
Look at the messenger! He's like,
yep.
You gave me a message I don't like, bashed him, almost to death.
And our first scene with seeing him is having people killed and
yes.
named and all sorts of things. This is not a character that is squeamish about any sort of violence.
Yes, and it's interesting to note what sets him off, okay? And one of the things that he hates most is weakness, okay? He has a very complex relationship with his brother. He did love his brother, but he hated his brother's weaknesses, okay? And Rhaenyra is starting to act in the same ways that Daemon perceived as negative and bad, and that he really hated. And so you can really understand why it triggers him. These are the things that triggers him, and it's been set up, and so it's very consistent with his character. And it shows more complexity to their relationship, which is an interesting kind of thing to depict, okay? It works for the show. It's not out of character, and so interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting scene. Here is the scene where Rhaenys' husband, I forget his name, is the Lord of Driftmark, arrives, and okay, like I said, there are minor nitpicks I have. They said that he was on his... No, I didn't catch any point when anyone said that he was on his way to Dragonstone. In actual fact, how could he have been on his way to Dragonstone when Rhaenys wasn't even intending to go to Dragonstone? The whole setup previously is that she arrived at the capital to resolve the issues of the succession, right, of who's going to inherit Driftmark. And then that night, Viserys dies and she gets locked in her chambers. She doesn't get any messengers out. And her intention was to return to Driftmark, not to Dragonstone. So why on earth is he here?
Left alone. Like, it does say something about his fever breaking or something, but not where he's redirected or where he's...
what must have happened, and
because I do remember there being some sort of message saying his fever had broken.
Yeah, and what I'm about to do here, the audience shouldn't have to do. Okay, if there's a confusing thing or a potentially confusing thing here, it's on the show to at least contextualize in a way that it doesn't throw you out of the show, and it could have been done with a simple line. Maybe there was a simple line and I missed it. If I missed it, share the line in the comments below. What had to have happened is that as soon as Rhaenys arrived at Dragonstone, she sent a raven to summon her lord husband, right, or something. But he's on his deathbed. Did they say the fever broken? Then he can travel, but he's still pretty sick here, seemingly. He's still in his bed. And so when this scene opened, I thought this was in Driftmark. I was like, oh, did Rhaenys return to Driftmark? That's where her husband is, and he's sick and everything. And I thought, like, that's what I assumed. But then he appears in the council and is like, no, they must be in Dragonstone. Maybe I need to rewatch it to validate if this is a criticism or not, because if there was a line to just explain it and I missed it, it isn't an issue. It surprised me. I was like, what's kind of going on here? In my first watching, the conversation is look, it works. He basically says, I'm done with all this, let them, we won't side with anyone. Of course, then Rhaenys says, oh, she's been showing restraint.
But he's also been told about the death of his brother, and he's like, oh, of course he did.
Yeah, my brother was just after power, and the thing is, right, their relationship wasn't established in the show very well. I don't know if they were super close or not. I don't know. And so we get the answer, I guess they must have been too close. My brother was foolish, got what he deserved. What can I do about it? So he doesn't seem to be holding a grudge. And
he knows what the situation was, and just saying those words on how both he and his brother knew where that was going to head. So he's just like, ugh.
Yeah. Oh, well, this is where she delivers it. Your brother is also dead. And he is like, oh, what? In his haste to bury you, he claimed your seat. He stood before the king, denounced Laenor's sons as illegitimate. And he's like...
You can see it right there. He's like, oh, he didn't.
That idiot.
Yeah, that would be what did it.
Yeah. And so it's interesting where that response is more like the moron. Of course anyone would get killed if they do that. And so he doesn't seem like he's holding a grudge per se. And I think that works. It's consistent with his character. And he could have, like, you know... Heedless ambition has always been a Valyrian weakness, he says. And he could be somewhat a little offended that his brother was so quick to bury him as well, just to claim Driftmark. It could have been rivalry here, so that works, I think. And then he says, we'll retire.
Let's go home. Let's leave them to their fight.
And then it's Rhaenys that says, well, and then I don't like it. Oh, I like the people that show restraint, even though I slaughtered them. It would have, again, they could have had the cake and eat it too, and then that line still would have fit in. But it does make sense why the Valerians are going to side with the Blacks. Their only living blood descendants are betrothed to Rhaenyra's sons, and so that all makes sense. And that's what is revealed in this next scene where he arrives and basically explains as much. And then he says, you have the full support of our fleet, and he's a very powerful house, remember. And then he also reveals that the war that he's been waging for 6 years, he won. He claimed the Stepstones, and that's like, I love this because it's tactical, it reveals why, and everything makes sense. It's just like, you can't have proper payoffs unless you set up the rules and let the audience understand what's going on. And so they've already set up that these stepstones are crucial and important in regards to trade and other things like that. And now suddenly the Valerians control them properly. They have an outpost there. And with that, they can use that as a blockade against the things that come into King's Landing.
Because there's like one main port that heads into the capital. And he's like, we'll just block it off.
And so you understand what's going on, and it has the payoff. And look, that's the thing. They say they can block off that whole area. There's Driftmark, and, King's Landing is further in. So they go and they show King's Landing, and it's like, aye, we see it. They show it. It makes sense. Love this type of just quality, logical writing. The payoffs work. Bit of an inciting incident in this discussion as well, because now they're like, all right, we need to secure two major allies, people at Storm's End and the people in Winterfell, the Starks in the north.
Three, right?
Was it? Oh, there might have been three. Okay. So they say that it's actually Jace that speaks up, and he says we should go, sending such important.
And dragons will get there faster.
So this is interesting, right? Like he says, send us, dragons are more impactful. It works, I guess, for Rhaenyra. She's naive enough to assume that her sons would be safe, I guess. But everyone else, there's a big council here, and I just really feel like one of the first concerns about sending the princes of the realm on this is that what if the Greens intercept them, find them? And this is the thing, right? In terms of the setup of what's actually happening, and this is where, look, I love that I have enough context to understand this, but by me having the context to understand it, it also reveals the error that I feel is done here, because the two biggest allies that either side is going to want to petition for seems to be Storm's End and the Starks in the north. Okay, they know this. They need to send it, but guess what? The Greens have had 2 days previous to try and circumvent or get to the ear of these allies first. And so the clear assumption is that the Greens probably have sent envoys to these locations anyway. And as a result, if the Greens are aware, which they should be, that the Blacks, Rhaenyra, is going to also want to send people to establish negotiations, a very clear tactical thing that the Greens might want to do, they have got dragons, is to set up a dragon just flying in the sky above the clouds or something to see to anyone approaching, and if there's any messenger, you would kill them instantly. Far from trying to negotiate against them, prevent the message from even arriving there to prevent the alliance being built up, which is strengthening their positions, just cut them off so you can secure your own thing.
Now, they've already established they have more dragons. They don't have a shortage of dragon riders. The Greens do. Yes,
this was the other thing, because this is the next step. Because my first thing is like, in the current setup of what's happening, you would never risk your own children princes of the realm, right?
They're the heirs.
They're the heirs.
Of Driftmark
exactly.
And of the kingdom.
And so, to me, you need to justify something so extremely reckless and risky for your own children. This is the type of thing where, because it feels like they've already done this right beforehand, where didn't Rhaenyra want to go, she send dragons or something, and it was Viserys like, no, don't do it. And when
You're my heir, you can't be risked.
Yeah, and when Rhaenyra left without the king's permission to kind of hijack the negotiation with Daemon and Dragonstone, that was hugely risky. Viserys should have been really put out by it when she leaves on her own. And so she's done it before, but she should also know by context that this is like dangerous, and she got in trouble for doing those things. And people have already kind of pointed out that this is the type of thing that someone would need to do against their wishes, where Jay says, or, we should go. And she's like, no, you can't go. I would never. It's too dangerous. And then they go anyway because they want to prove themselves. They're ambitious.
It's kind of been set up that, she likes that they're wanting to take responsibility and do their duty. But you would think the protective instinct would kick in. She'd be like, we are basically trying to start a war. We need some experienced older writers that won't influence the inheritance that we have laid out. That's
the other thing, because even if it was set up like, mother, send us, and she's like, no, it's too dangerous, and then they choose to go on their own against their wishes because they want to help and they're invested and all that stuff, it doesn't make sense because there's other dragon riders that can easily go in their place and achieve just as much. You'd think. I mean, does the word of a prince have as much sway? It's a sign that you respect the person you're petitioning more, but is that worth risking their lives? But all right. Then there's the assumption of, does Rhaenyra believe that sons would be protected? They would never be killed because of protect the messenger type of thing. But the thing is, a messenger was almost already killed, but he was a lowborn messenger. No one would dare raise a hand against a prince. And she could simply be perfectly, secure in her belief that Alicent would never go so far to risk harming one of her children. That's where you might be able to justify it.
You could, but you're not sending a message to Alicent, is the
trick.
You can't rely on everybody else to act the way Alicent would
exactly,
as a mother.
Exactly, and that's where this falls apart as well, because if Alicent isn't willing to, Otto sure as hell is, and a lot of people around her are. And the Greens have committed extreme high treason by what they've done. And so the context that they should be understanding so clearly, and is actually obvious if you're in this room, is that all bets are off. There is no guaranteed protection for her children. In actual fact, one of the better moves the Greens can do is to kill the heirs at any chance possible to secure their thing. That's been the obvious tactical play that the show has presented from get-go. Otto has been repeating it as an obvious thing that everyone knows without needing to be told, except those naive enough to not realize, like Alicent was, where he said, the only way that your children would be safe is by, killing the others. He says,
as soon as she takes the throne, your children are dead.
Yes.
This is exactly how he thinks.
But also how many people think. From Otto's perspective, is just pointing out the obvious, and there should be someone in this room who flippin' should know that one of the primary goals of the Greens, it would be to kill off Rhaenyra's children, the heirs, the blacks, at all costs. And so the fact that they say, yeah, that's a great idea, let's send out the princes. I love this show. I like this episode, right? But this is the type of thing I would absolutely rip apart in a lesser show, okay? And I need to be consistent here. This is an issue. It's a plot hole. I can't see a justification. If you have a justification, share it in the comments. And maybe there are, and I certainly won't discount the possibility there are. But every time that I think of a thing to explain it, like the assumption that they will be protected under, protecting messenger type of thing, the assumption that Alicent will never go so far. I don't see it. There's too many things that logically bring up a counter, especially by the fact that the Greens, they've shown by their actions they will do any, holy crap, innocent people have already been slaughtered, but that was by Rhaenys, so it's in there, but still, they killed, Rhaenys would have told them that they executed nobles who did not bend the knee, right? They are committing treason and murder to secure their, so then, what would you do if you felt it was so important to secure these alliances that you really felt it truly was necessary, which I don't think it was, but all right, we can go that far, that it was necessary to send the princes of the realm, okay? The two heirs. Jace is first, No, is it Jace? Yeah, Jace is first. Luke is second.
Yeah.
One or the other. Both. This isn't like they're betrothed who are both dragon riders, but they're not like heirs to the. They're not heirs to the throne.
One of them's a dragon rider, I believe.
Maybe the other doesn't. But they have more dragon riders. There's Daemon for crying out.
Daemon is, and Princess Rhaenys.
Yeah, and they ask where Daemon is in this scene, and they're just he's not here. They don't give the context. We find out later it's just amongst the dragons, it's trying to get a thing. But still, Daemon is the best pick to send on that errand.
He's not an heir. He is a tactician, but there are
and he's strong. Who would dare threaten Daemon? Like sending children who are not experienced. These are very vulnerable children. So, like I said, if there was a way to justify that, it was so important to send the princes of the realm. You would send them with an escort. You have multiple dragons. You would send at least another dragon with him, with a protection, with a king. Put a king's guard on the back. Well, do dragons allow additional people? I don't know, but like. You would have protection with him or something. More than one dragon would be the next clear thing. Rhaenys is there, but then again, you don't want to send Rhaenyra because that would put her but if it's too risky for Rhaenyra, it's too risky for her children.
Well, and she has just kind of given birth. I don't know that you'd want to
that's true.
dragon straight after having a baby.
But at least Daemon and one of the other, one of his daughters that is a dragon rider. At least, but it's just the single child and everything. And so when this happened in the show, that it was just the two boys going off, they're so open and vulnerable, I knew exactly what was going to happen. In actual fact, I thought, we're already in the spoilers, so you know what happens. I thought both were going to die. I thought it was actually going to be even bigger and more serious.
I actually didn't think of it.
Really?
I was actually blown away by the end. Because it just never occurred to me. I was just watching it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, she's trying to, trust her sons to do some responsible stuff and give them some responsibility in this war. And I'm like, okay. And that's fine. And I just took it and didn't really think till a few minutes in.
That's fine. You know me. I always like paying attention to what plot setups and so when that happened, I was like, they're both dead. It was very clear to me. And of course... at least one was going to die, which they did. I thought both was going to die, and as a result, I was actually kind of preparing myself to something even more emotionally crazy, and it was less so. And so that's when I was a little deflated because I was expecting crazy big stuff to happen. I thought both would be killed at least. I thought Otto was going to be wiped out in that thing, and all that.
Shown the meeting with the other one yet, so
there's
still potential for disaster.
Yeah, right. And it didn't happen. But still, what did happen was very personal, very heartbreaking, and it was effective, don't get me wrong. It's just the setup wasn't perfectly justified. And I think for most people, they won't care. It won't be a problem. And in actual fact, most people will just say, it isn't as big as you're thinking, Shad. It's perfectly justified. And if you have that perspective, I'm glad. For me, it doesn't bring me there. The Starks are more known to be noble, and so there's less chance that the Starks would allow such a terrible thing to happen, but that wouldn't discount the possibility of the Greens having the head start, setting up something. They've got dragon riders, because, I don't know, if you're in the general vicinity in the sky, you could probably spot a dragon a decent way off. It'll either be circling above, and as soon as you see it, especially like a single dragon rider on a smaller dragon, and it's an easy setup. Like, if I was the Greens, that's what I'd be doing. Is like, we know that they're going to be trying to seek alliances. I would simply be setting it up for the possibility of stopping a messenger. And I would have that set up. And when the messenger sees that it's a flippin', like, Jace or Luke, I'd be like, holy crap! What a freebie! You're just, like, serving him up on a platter. Chomp. Oh, yeah. Yes, we must remind these lords of the oaths they swore. There's another kind of thing, and I think this is more easily justified with Rhaenyra's, naivety or inexperience, is that all she is doing is like, you swore an oath, do what you said you did, and they don't offer any incentive or bargaining, and it comes up, it's like the Lord of Storm's End, his Baratheon, I think, says, I was offered this really great alliance through marriage. What are you offering?
My dad's the one that swore this, and
I didn't
swear
swear
me anything. Like, what do you want from me?
And so, there's a lot of lords here, though. You think one of them would have said, maybe we should just, sweeten the deal a bit? And again, wouldn't the first assumption be, with the Greens having a head start on them, that they've sent someone to these really important lords as well and probably offered it as we need to offer something more than what the Greens could offer? It doesn't even come up. It's off the radar. They just assume no one has approached these lords already, even though the Greens were so well prepared that they locked off King's Landing, they had the coronation with all the people there, and they're thinking suddenly that the Greens are not doing anything else to get security with the other lords. Nah, it'll be fine. There'll be no one there. We'll just send our heirs off.
Because Damon's their main tactician. He's not here in this meeting. But the Lord of Driftmark is.
Yes.
He's been running a war for 6 years.
There's Knights of the Realm here. There's other lords. There's a lot of people where they're not dumb. It's just these are actually obvious things from the context of what's being set up here. So Rhaenyra is saying goodbye to the sons, and I just got to point out what the boys are wearing. Look, I love the outfits. This is something you would usually point out in dresses, but I guess I noticed what the men are wearing,
Oh, I appreciate the outfits through the whole season. They're just some beautiful, stunning outfits that have a lot of detail, and they're just great.
Look at those outfits.
I know. I actually looked at those and went, I want to recreate those clothes.
Aren't they great? One of the things I love about this is that the brocades and patterns on them. This is what you see in the medieval period. Medieval people loved colour, they loved embroidery and design and everything, and so the lords, they would have these hupplins and cotahades, and these are the types of medieval garments, and they're these flowing garments and cloaks as well, with these elaborate embroidery work on it, and this is inspired by the medieval period, and they're doing that here, and it looks amazing. And it's actually, they do a better job in House of the Dragon than Game of Thrones, with the outfits and the sets and the weapons and the armor and the buildings and the castles, by a country mile. The higher budget, it just looks so much better. And these outfits here that the boys are wearing,
they're fantastic.
They are, I love it. I love it. Absolutely gorgeous. And of course, they're wearing their best because they're going to be, they're princes, they're going on this diplomatic thing. You'd think that they'd have an escort of armed protectors and all that, no one else can go on, but they have other dragons. Oh yeah. So she makes them swear to not do any aggressive act. All right, don't fight anyone, don't everything.
They're as messengers only. Deliver the message, come home.
Okay, and it's she's worried about them causing fights. Did you not think about other people causing fights with them? It's no, they got dragons to protect them. Other people have dragons, and we find out that poor Luke's dragon is still, basically a baby. And so these dragons look way bigger. Yeah. And then little Luke's one is yeah, he's got a dragon, but it's not that, dangerous compared to the size of the other ones. We find out where Daemon is, and he is basically trying to secure, I think it's Verminoth or something. He was the king that was choosing between Rhaenys and Viserys. It's his dragon, and that dragon doesn't have a rider since then.
But what got me confused here is the dragon will accept only one rider, but he already has a dragon. He can't ride both at the time.
I was confused.
Why would he be trying to soothe the dragon?
I was actually legitimately confused about this as well, and there's probably answers in external lore. A show shouldn't have to rely on external lore to make sense, and nothing in the show itself has answered that a dragon rider can be bonded to more than one dragon. It's really implied it's just one. I know when you look at Game of Thrones, Daenerys kind of had 3 dragons. You can only ride on one, but the 3 dragons were kind of bonded to her and loyal to her. Thing is,
and they give verbal commands, so I suppose you could shout out to get them to do stuff.
Yes,
but the ideal is to have extra loyal people.
Well, you want multiple riders
to go multiple places at once.
Yeah, and so if Daemon's able to kind of get this one loyal to him to command him, then he might be able to offer him to someone else as a rider. There's that. But in terms of Game of Thrones, those dragons looked on her as their mother, and
not as so much as their dragon rider.
Yes, and so again, in terms of House of the Dragon, they haven't really contextualized. But I guess it's kind of precedent in Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I kind of guess that. I just thought, it just seemed weird that if they're going to war, they want to be able to have dragons from multiple fronts. Yeah. And if he's got 2 only listening to one person, they've got to kind of stick together.
Well, maybe Damon is willing to risk it because this is such a hard dragon to tame that you need a really strong will to...
And he does have a strong will and he's very brave. So
and if there's...
He would be the one that would...
And by the way, this dragon is big. It's like, I think it's second biggest to the one that Aemond has. And so it's a big, powerful dragon, very old. And so maybe Damon is actually wanting to upgrade. He needs a bigger, stronger dragon. Because look at the size...
Wouldn't put that past him either.
Yeah, look at the size of that thing. And oh, man, it looks so good. Like, the effects of this show, and it's a lower budget than Rings of Power, and it just looks so much better, and the dragons look incredible. Look at this thing, look at the teeth on it.
And I kind of like him singing in this dragon tongue, or whatever tongue they use to speak to the dragons, and it's considering him.
Yeah. And so, I think, oh, yeah, the scene makes sense, and it is also really powerful and great. I still think, you know, you might wanted to have asked Damon to go on the journey, wait for him to get back, and don't just send your sons. And so we come to Luke arriving in, I think it's Storm's End. And oh, by the way, look how gorgeous that looks. Looks great. He arrives. Okay, so I have nitpicks, and I don't think people like me nitpicking because I think this is one of their favorite episodes and they don't ruin my fun. I really liked everything like that. Apologize. I need to be consistent. I would have these same questions for a lesser show, and because this show is so good, we can't give it a free pass. And it doesn't, what the things that I'm going to be bringing up don't ruin this episode for me. I really like the episode. I just feel there are things that they probably could have executed a little bit better. Because he arrives, right? And it's impactful, it's powerful. They show that right there. And that is the big one, the big dragon that is loyal to Aemond. I forget the name. Vhagar, that's the one. So, alright. I'm interested in his reaction here, so let's just play it out briefly. He turns, he sees Vhagar, and look, he kind of packs his axe there. I'll give it that, okay. But context. Vhagar is here. If Vhagar is here, Aemond is... Oh, Aemond is here. What does Aemond think of me, Luke, who took his eye...
This is not a great situation to be in.
Like, at this point, like, this isn't cowardice. I think this is just like, take it, like, here's the note. Bye!
Dear Lord, I'm out of here.
I'm gone. Would the Lord have seen that as an insult?
Possibly. He's trying hard to be brave here.
I know. And
try to face
I think we can give it that. That's how we could excuse it. He's naive enough to think that... As naive enough, young enough, and insecure enough that he feels he needs to prove himself. That I can accept. There's an interpretation that, alright, I can go with it there.
And it fits his personality. He's trying
really hard fit his personality.
To overcome his fears, to live up to his responsibilities, and he feels this is something that he volunteered to do, he needs to do this, and he's going to be in this Lord's house, so he will be fine, he just needs to face his fears.
And you know what I would have liked? Because I think then they could have sold this a little bit better. When he sees it, show him hesitate. Have him look back to his dragon and kind of edge towards it. And then he has the note in his hand and he kind of tightens it a bit hard and steels himself and is like... And then he could even push it to like... He could close his eyes like, you can do this, or something like that, you know? Where that now conveys that he is desperate to prove himself. He's desperate to be brave. And even though... Like, it's a naive move. A smarter person would realize that, no, this is not good. Like, it's not good at all. I need to leave right now.
I think they portrayed it fairly well. That he was trying really hard to live up to who he wanted to be.
How good does that look, though? Vhagar is huge. What a monster. So, I don't know. Here is just like, oh, okay. Vhagar's there, huh? Oh, all right then. He just keeps walking. I was like, I don't know. His first response was like, looking back, I think it should have been a more like, oh crap, hesitation stuff. Having said that, with what they have, there is an explanation to give. Is it us doing the job for the writers, adding headcanon?
I think it fits his character, though.
It does fit his character. You're right, and I think perhaps
And that's what this,
I get
this show
this is
thrives on is that they establish characters
and they expect you to fill in the gaps.
Fit.
Yeah, you're right, and that, good point. The show establishes characters, and then they show the characters doing stuff, and they expect you to figure it out based on what's set up. And you can, and this is justified with this character. I agree, and so I would say no. This isn't a criticism; it's justified, based on the lovely discussion I had with my wife here. See how smart she is. He arrives. Yes, Aemond is there. Shouldn't be a surprise if Aegar is there. But he delivers the message anyway. Interesting thing about the Lord Baratheon here, he can't read. He needs to get his maester to read it for him. Aemond is there just giving him eyes. And
Well, giving him the eye.
The eye, right? Look, Aemond is a very well done character, and just the posture, exactly. He's purposely trying to intimidate him. And he knows, you took my eye. And just by looking at him with a stern face, that's exactly what he's saying. You took my eye. I have not forgiven you. I haven't forgotten that. Look, he's he's back in his text. He's like, oh, crap. So, this actually insults him. He says, what? You have the gall to remind me of my oath. Sorry, my father's oath. It wasn't my oath. And then you bring nothing else. And look, it's a very good point. In fact, it's so good and kind of so obvious that Rhaenyra is naive. What are the other lords? Why didn't they raise that kind of thing? Rhaenyra, I can believe Rhaenyra is just of course, they offered their oath. I expect them...
They made a promise. Of course they're supposed to keep it.
But then the thing is, though... It was the Lord of Drishbark, I forget his name, he says they were old and stale oaths. He even said, those oaths probably aren't going to mean much. But then Rhaenyra didn't listen to that. Was there any other lord who says, no,
you want to sweeten the deal a little bit?
Sweeten the deal a bit. And also, the fact that you could intuitively assume that the Greens have probably sent envoys and made offers already, that it's there. The logic is there to be seen, and it seems to be ignored. And he says, look, I've got daughters here. Will you marry one of them? And he's like, oh, I'm already betrothed, and I don't have the authority to, do anything. So he just says, I'll take your heir to the queen, and I gotta get out of here. Good point. He's trying to leave. And then Aemond is like, oi! Do you really think that she could just fly about the realm? And again, it's do they really think they could just do that? Trying to steal my brother's throne at no cost? Yeah, Rhaenyra should not have just assumed they could fly about the other side of dragons, okay? They'd be after... Anyway, so this just plays out as you would expect because it's obvious and the character should have been aware of it.
But it was pointed out, so at least they know that these people just weren't thinking this through very well.
It makes them look stupid. And they shouldn't be stupid. Daemon is... Well, he wasn't there, but there was lots of lords there. And so anyway, interesting. He's he demands an eye. Trying to steal my brother's throne at no cost. Jace, Luke says, I'm not going to fight you. I said I wouldn't. And of course, he's no match for Aemond. Came as a messenger, not a warrior. And of course, Aemond's a fight would be little challenge. This is interesting. It reveals, right? I want to put out your eye, you basically say, you did me, and then he shows his eye, and he's got a sapphire in there. Looks cool.
Why would you wear a patch if you're
That's my point.
With a pretty gem?
If you've got a gem in there, you've gone to that much trouble, why are you wearing an eye patch now?
I can understand it when he's riding the dragon, he doesn't want it to, fall out and disappear, but he's not riding the dragon right now.
Yeah, and it looks so awesome. And he doesn't want to scare little children? I don't know. Is he that real? I don't think he's the type of character to really care. In fact, if it adds a more intimidation factor, he'd never be wearing that eye patch. It's got a jewel in there. Did they want it just for the reveal?
Probably.
I think so. Still... now I just don't think he should be wearing the eye patch. And of course, he demands that, demands the boy cut out his own eye, but then the Baratheon guy steps in and says, no, the boy came as an envoy, he will not be harmed. Now, as he leaves, like, context, he leaves and the big dragon isn't there, all right? And so the implication is as soon as he, like, rounds the corner, I could just see Aemond here rushing out. Legging it to the back door, and he's like, I'm gonna have some fun. We don't see him do that, but obviously that's not headcanon. That's just if you can explain it through context of the scene and it doesn't break reality, it's not teleporting. It's like, yeah, there'll be back doors on castles. They had sally ports. All that stuff. There was probably a balcony that the dragon could just move up against, that he jumps on top of, and so that's fine, and it's not unreasonable headcanon. But he is like wondering, where is the big guy? He can't see him, and probably it's almost raining too much. His own dragon is freaking out a bit, which it makes sense, okay, and he could probably sense the is it murderous intent from the other bigger dragon? And so he speaks in High Valyrian saying, focus, be calm, pay attention. And the little dragon is really struggling to get height here. The reveal is awesome, okay? And I think it's perfectly in line with Aemond's character to mess with Luke here. Okay?
Oh, absolutely.
We do find out Aemond didn't want to kill him, but he wants to mess with him. He's like, you took my eye, He's going to terrify him. I don't know. Like, Alicent would not want these children harmed. Otto would be like, take him out. You have the opportunity. And so the fact that they show him reluctant and regretful, I'm not fully there yet, because I think perhaps he's actually he's trying to kill Jace, from the get-go. Not Jace, Luke. From the get-go. Because is it worth the trouble to race to your dragon, get out, chase him down, just to mess with him?
With the dragon above the other. He could have attacked right there and then.
True.
And he's just hovering and messing with him through a lot of this.
Yeah, that's true. It looks great. The reveal is legitimately awesome, right? Look at how awesome that dragon looks. This is the effects that you would see in a feature film.
Absolutely. It's beautiful.
Top tier. It looks better than actual feature films. Like, is it Aragorn with the dragon? Like, these dragons look amazing, okay? And it's brilliant. Yeah, he's looking back wondering, is he getting followed? He can't see through the rain. And then look at the shadow, the big dragon. Just that looks so epic right there. That's phenomenal. It looks great. And you're right.
You get a great perspective on the different sizes.
Now, the thing is, when you say he could have killed him then and he didn't, I'm not sure that reflects that he isn't intending to kill him. I think it's very in line with exactly. It's very in line with Aemond's character to mess with his prey before he makes the kill. He is in complete control. This is a nitpick, and this is nowhere near as big of a significant nitpick that I think feel free to ignore this one, okay? This is like the ultra nerdy nitpick type of stuff. I don't think the big dragon, I forget the name of the big dragon. Vhagar. I don't think Vhagar could have caught up with the little dragon. Not only in this weather. I thought about it. At first I was thinking larger wingspan, displacing more air, but then I got hit by good old science, the square cube law, okay? And so the proportion of the wings to the main body of the dragon is relatively similar between the small one and the big one, okay? And so they're displacing about the same percentage of air to their overall percentage of size, okay? In the size of the wings, in percentage of the thing. The thing is, though, when you increase something's size, if you increase the size of an object by, say, twice, it's twice as big, you increase the surface area by 4 and its internal volume, which is its mass, weight, by 8. Vhagar will be insanely heavy in comparison to his own wingspan and his ability to displace air versus this little dragon. In actual fact, it breaks physics that they'll even be able to fly, but let's just pretend that they can fly, okay? He would be like an eighth of the speed and probably far less than the speed of the little one.
I'm okay accepting that the dragon's faster. I'm just okay with that.
It's a massive nitpick. I get that. You can ignore it.
I will.
I just will point it out and say science isn't on their side with this one. The big one would not be able to fly as fast as the little one.
I would believe not manoeuvrable enough as much as the little one, but considering it takes up so much space, it's almost a non-factor.
It's not a matter of internal volume, it's a matter of wind displacement percentage of the wing ratio to its mass. Sorry, Monty Python. I'm the guy on the thing. It's like
Since you can't see me, I just gave him a great big blank stare and had no idea what he was talking about, which is why he needed to explain that.
It's not a matter of migration patterns. It's a matter of weight ratios. A 4 pound. It's nerdy stuff. Okay, you know I'm gonna go there, right? And so this scene is completely retarded. This dragon will be nowhere near fast enough or big enough to catch up and breach the show. What are you doing? That's what I'd do if the show was bad. Okay, I would dive in on stupid points like this. Because stupid points like this in a bad show just makes it worse, and is like salt in the wound, and is like it's already ruined. Why are you making it worse? It's like kicking us way down with stupid things like this. In a good show, it's like okay, I can ignore it because it's a great show, and
it's cool dragons.
It's a cool dragon. The rule of cool is there. Most people won't figure it out. I wouldn't let it get away in a lesser show. I'm just being consistent, all right? Okay? And look, this point wouldn't make me rage. I was just doing that for comedic effect. It's actual really plot-breaking stuff where that makes me go off. So Vagar is there, right? And look at that. Look at that.
Look at that size.
It's so big. And Aemond is saying, like, there's a debt to be paid. Obviously, Luke wouldn't be able to hear him. So he must be just saying, it's a battle cry, He's saying it to the air to himself, like, ha ha ha, kind of thing. Because, of course, Luke wouldn't be able to hear him throughout this. But Luke dives. Perfectly tactical, viable thing. If he can't outrun him, he should be able to outmaneuver him, even though he should technically be able to outrun him as well. Could it be the weather? Sorry, look, I'm nerdy. We're going to go there, okay? By being big and having more mass, all right, it would be the bigger dragon would be displaced by the bad weather and wind to a lesser degree than the little one. The little one, because it has less mass, less inertial mass, stationary inertia, which means it takes less energy, less wind force to knock it off course. Where the dragon the big one could remain on course because it's got just so heavy and it can resist the wind easier. This is olive branch. I'm looking for ways to justify it, okay?
But he's having a blast here.
Yeah, look at him.
I'm terrorizing this kid. This is fun.
Yeah, he's loving it. Poor Luke here. He's packing his dax. But hey, he does the right thing, dives to cover, and then he dives into a crevice in between a cliff. He can fit in there. Big dragon can't. Perfect, smart, thing. And at this point, I was like, okay, you are kind of safe. You could land, unless Aemond is trying to kill you and is going to fireball everything, then get to cover. I think there's lots of places for cover here. Yeah, so Vagar is still over top. Okay, so Vagar is following over top. It really looks like, though, Aemond... Look, he's looking. He's like, where did he go? He can't see him. Because now, at this point, I thought he got to safety. You're now out of sight.
Out of sight, you can maneuver in different directions and get lost.
You're all good. So what happens next? I was like... I think they could have justified it. If they didn't show this really implies he got to safety, okay? What they should have shown is that he got to the end of the crevice, or there's a thing, and he has to start circling, and circling in this, like, I don't know, open crevice underground, and Vagar is just over top, not moving anywhere, and they're trapped. That could do it, because a cornered animal will strike, okay? Now, people are trying to say, I've had discussions with Nerdrotic and them, is that you can't predict how these dragons would behave because they're not regular animals. I think that's being a little too generous. I think the most logical assumption about these animals is that they would act more in line with the point of reference we have, which is a lot of other animals, including predatory animals and stuff like that, because it already showed these dragons acting somewhat very similar to other animals with how skittish the dragon was and afraid it was. That's like a skittish horse when it's in an uncomfortable spot and things like that. And so what happens with animals, right? Animals of prey and stuff like that, they only attack when they feel cornered, all right? And they can't get away. Their first instinct is to get out of there, run away. And so, because what happens here, after this supposed they get to freedom, then the dragon attacks, or the little dragon attacks the big one. And I was just like, what? Because here, it looks like Eamon can't see him. Look, he's laughing. He's like, ha, ha, ha. All right, okay. I am rewatching this as part of the review to confirm or counter my own points. I want to see what is implied in the show here to be as fair as I can.
Because I don't remember the little one attacking, so I'm interested to see what you're talking about.
It launches a fireball at the big dragon.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I do remember the fireball.
And so... okay, now it is shown Vega still over top of the canyon. It's like a small crevice canyon. And he screams, "You owe a debt." Okay. He can't hear you, Eamon, but still, he's just saying it into the air. He's laughing. He's having a good time. You owe a debt, boy. Can he see anything? Like this shot here. There's going to be a reveal of a dragon right here. But they showed that, to begin with, he can't see it. And so, to me, the dragon was completely out of sight. It really looked like they got to safety. And if Eamon can't see them, right, as soon as they get above that canyon, they can go in any direction. So then, what is forcing them to do this? Looking around, where is he? Can't see him. And it really shows that he's lost. Okay, but then Luke speaks in High Valyrian and says, "No, Alex." So, what's being implied here, he's lost control of his dragon. The dragon got freaked out so much that it is now attacking back. Is that justified? Maybe. In actual fact, now that I think about it, I think it can for this reason. They have been trying to escape for ages already. They've been flying through the canyon, trying to escape from the big one. The big one is continually following it, and so the dragon could honestly feel that it can't escape now. They've tried, and it's just pursued them, and so even though they might have still been able to escape...
like a cat being chased by a dog, turning around and lashing out.
That's it. That's the answer right there. Because... when a cat is being chased by a dog again and again, even though it can run in all other directions, if it's tried to escape already and it's just being pursued still, it starts to think, if I keep running, I'm going to get the same result. I'm still going to get pursued, so now I have to turn back and hit back. That justifies it. Okay, good. It's not an issue now, right? Sold. Because yes, if the dragon honestly had that impression, I've been trying to escape and I've just been kept on getting chased, so now it's lashing back.
Because from this perspective, Luke is actually trying
to stop him.
To get away and to stop him, saying, "But we need to get out of here," kind of perspective. And the dragon's like, "I've got to protect myself." Yeah, my first watching this, I didn't see the High Valyrian and no Arrax, and so I thought this was Luke flying the dragon to attack Aemond, committing suicide after he got to safety and he fled. And I was thinking, what the hell is going? What are you doing? You're committing suicide. Because I missed that. So with that context and the greater context of the scene, I actually think, man, I'm happy about this, by the way. My criticism withdrawn completely here. It actually plays out perfectly, logically, and it's justified, and I'm glad about it because it makes me like this scene even more. That's why I do it, all right? Because I want to like it, but I'm not going to give it any freebies, okay? It's like the thing that played out with Alicent and Viserys when Viserys died, okay? Did it make sense for her to get that impression from the words that were spoken, or was she being a bit dumb and not taking the obvious understanding that this guy's delirious and you shouldn't take him seriously? But when you play out that scene, word for word, she questions him, and the answer she gets seems to confirm her suspicions. And so sometimes it takes a rewatching, breaking it down, and
if you do that, it can get, I love that, it can get better. Because remember, I say, like, oftentimes the shows, upon general viewing, I have an impression on it, but then when I dive into it and try and break down what's going on, it can become a crap mine where you reveal, oh, here's a problem, and you keep going, oh, another problem, another problem, another problem. But sometimes, rare times, the reverse can happen. You dive into it, and the problems you thought were there aren't problems, and it gets better. And a show can get better upon rewatching, and it's happened here. Oh, I'm happy about that. Okay, so yes, he says no, Arex, and the dragon, Arex has felt cornered, is now lashing out like a cat that was trying to get away from a dog, just like now lashing back at the thing, and then, okay, by fireballing the big one, okay? And look, now he's like, because I saw this part in the first watching, and I thought he lost control only right here, but...
and when I watched this, I actually got confused because I thought Luke was trying to get control of the big dragon.
Yes.
I forgot the names of the dragons, and I'm like, why is he talking to the other guy's dragon? Is he trying to stop him from attacking him? Like, I don't get it. And so now that I know which dragon's which, it's making even more sense.
Yes, yeah. And so he's lost complete control of Arex here. But of course, Vhagar, he just got
He just got fireballed, so he is not happy.
Yeah, and the no, I think that's Aemon speaking. He's like, no.
Aemon's just realised that his dragon is not
look,
listen to him now.
No, Vhagar, no, don't do it. And he's trying to pull back and, serve me, Vhagar. No, and he speaks in High Valyrian. And poor James has just lost control. Oh, my goodness. And then... yeah. Chomp.
They give us daylight so we can see this so clearly.
And it makes sense, of course, there'll be daylight above the clouds, get away from the wind and everything. And he thinks he's free. Oh, look, it's a beautiful shot. Look how gorgeous this is. And then, look at this. Oh, look. It is so well executed, this, and then I'm going to go slowly, but look at the perspective, the angle. Woo! And then chomp. And that's poor Luke in that crunching maw, and then blood spray upon the crunch.
Down a dragon and a prince.
Oh no, can you see him? I think that's him there. I think that's Luke. Oh dear. Amen. And he's like,
uh-oh.
Oh crap. I didn't mean to go that far. There's wings pieces. Yeah, those are 2 wings. I thought you could see the cloak at one point, but no, it's not. It's just the pieces of dragon. Oh. Look at his face. It's just like, it's like, you don't need a word, like, again, visual storytelling, body language, expression tells us everything we need to know.
This went a little too far.
Look, I actually like that they gave this to Aemon, that he wasn't a complete bloodthirsty psychopath. They could have done that, but they showed that he didn't want to go that far.
And even if you just have it from the perspective that he really loves dragons and a dragon just got destroyed.
No, I think it's definitely the Jace thing.
Both, but, he probably would have been pretty upset just if the dragon had been destroyed, let alone his, nephew?
Yeah, and so what a powerful ending. You know what? With that was my biggest concern. I thought that, that could have been a stupid moment where they justified a suicidal run just to get the emotional payoff, and the fact that is not an issue anymore, that raises it to an 8 out of 10 for me. This episode, maybe even higher. Like, I was between 7 and 8, now I'm between 8 and 9. All right, seriously, because this moment here where, again, it's so well executed. No dialogue is needed. Okay, it's all body language and the tone and music and everything, and this show, it has masterfully executed moments like this. Same when Daemon got the message about his brother, he didn't need to say a word. You got the context just by what's going on. This is what makes House of the Dragon so exceptional in just the cinematography, the characterization, and that they can have such powerful scenes like this without a single word being spoken. Because if this was in Rings of Power, you know what would happen? It's like they would, not only would a character have to say, "Oh no, your son has been dead," and then the response would have to be, "Oh no, my son is dead. What will I?" And they would spell it out. That would be.
But I was also wondering, watching this scene, like, how did they get word?
Okay,
there was no spectators up there, unless Aemond sent an apology note. I'm like, look, a prank got out of control. Your son is dead, and so is his dragon.
Yeah, I had to talk about this on Nerdrotic with the guys as well, and. There's a question mark here, but it's not as bad as other things because...
I suppose a dragon falling from the sky is pretty hard to miss.
There's that, and we don't know how much time has passed between that scene and this scene, because they will find out eventually, okay? There's no way they won't. And so the information obviously would get back to them somehow, and because we don't know how much time has passed, we can obviously simply assume...
a few weeks later or
exactly, enough time has passed for them to find out, and this is how it's being delivered, because even though people would not have been able to see there was too much rain, too much cloud, there was over canyons and everything, you can't justify that someone saw it from the ground by what they're shown. There was a fireball.
There was a fireball, but
that would have flashed in the sky.
A dragon corpse littering probably kilometres of ground.
Yes.
And there's only so many dragons in the world to deduce whose it is.
It's a small dragon.
And there's only so many things that can kill a dragon.
And so the context that people would be able to figure out is Luke left, and at the same time, Aemond left. And he must have rushed out in a quick time. Both their dragons disappeared at the same time from Thingo. Then we see the remains of a particularly small dragon with probably large teeth marks in it. It doesn't take too much difficulty to put 1 and 2 together after that point.
If enough time has passed, it would be very easy to deduce that this is who is gone and how.
And look, they didn't show the scene of Alicent finding out, because Alicent, I think, would have been distraught as well, and probably Alicent even sent them this message, right?
I would believe it if if that's how they placed it, but
because all we know is that Daemon has the information. Was it in from a raven, or was it the fact no one's returned in time, and that putting 1 and 2 together? But anyway, it's clear he knows. And look, we see Rhaenyra here. She stumbles there, right, and she's. And look, I still have the criticism that it didn't make sense sending them in the first place. I don't think we've resolved that one. That's why I think I'm sitting on an 8. Could have been better if there was more justification for those things here. But still, yeah. It's powerful, heartbreaking, and poor Jace. I liked him. He was a great character, great young lad.
Luke.
He didn't deserve...
Luke,
sorry, yeah. But still Jace as well. But Luke didn't deserve it. He was a great young lad, innocent, in this horrible world with awful things happening. And then... Yeah. Now it's, Hellfire and Brimstone. Yeah, it's war unrestrained, and that's the end of the season. We'll leave it there, and ends with that shot with the penny in the air, or penny drop. I don't know. Anyway, it's happened, right? Things are going to go crazy, and it's the end of season 1, and wow, House of the Dragon has been brilliant.
What a way to end it, to kind of tease for more. There is more coming, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to get interesting even more.
I'm so grateful we got a show this good in this time, specifically with the release of Rings of Power, because if anyone tries to say Rings of Power is good and everything, it's it feels like people have forgotten what actual quality media is like. Because this isn't just good. This is actually pretty great, okay? Look at the scenes in which they have so much told without any voice saying, where Rings of Power was so bad because they spelt everything out and it was so painful, and people might have said, no, that's fine. But it's wait, look at House of the Dragon. Look at how good a show can be when you have not only quality storytelling, but great cinematography, visual storytelling, characterization, consistency, and all that stuff.
But in this, they're show and tell matches. That's been the main problem with Rings of Power. They're show and tell don't match up. They tell you they try telling you one thing, and then they show something that does not match up at all.
Yep, and look at our reviews. We point out multiple instances where they do that in the Rings of Power episodes. But House of the Dragon is a masterwork. I've loved season 1. I'm really excited for season 2. I hope the quality doesn't get worse. But I would recommend season 1. Go watch it, enjoy it. I even say divorce it from Game of Thrones. I think it stands on its own as a great show. You don't need Game of Thrones to support it. You don't need to be disappointed by the end of Game of Thrones. I hope this one doesn't end like Game of Thrones. And the thing that gives me hope is that it seems like they've learnt from their mistakes, because otherwise they wouldn't have been able to make such a great show in House of the Dragon. So there's the warning sign with Rhaenys, where they did go for spectacle over substance. I'm hoping it's just like a blip on the radar, a mistake. They had the wrong director or writer, that the people behind the show, and for the most part this seems to be the case, because the show overall is great and there's very few moments of complete like what's going on, like the Rhaenys moment. And as a result, it gives me confidence for season 2, because they just keep the right people making this stuff. This is top tier entertainment, something we have been lacking in a long time. And look, even if they tried to say that there's certain messaging agendas, it's not reflected in the show or the finished quality. I didn't see it. It's showing men and women being both good and awful equivalently, and it's great. And it showed a great man, father, and husband in Viserys. Like a man who just wanted peace, and he tried his best. And I'm grateful that the show has that in there, and I think I'll love it because of Viserys for a long time to come. And that's it. Here we go. We are at the end. House of the Dragons, season 10, all done. We might do it.
Season 1, episode 10.
Season 1, episode 10.
We're not up to the season.
Thank you. We probably do an overview recap of the whole season, but this has been episode 10. Thank you for joining, and as always, stay on watch.